QIMR Berghofer acknowledges the traditional and cultural custodians of the lands, waters and seas across Queensland, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We support the cultural knowledge, determination and commitment of First Nations communities in caring for health and well-being for millennia.
Welcome to QIMR Berghofer's 80th anniversary podcast. I'm Claire Blake, and we're celebrating 8 decades of bold ideas, real science, and the brilliant men and women who made it happen. We did start in a leaky old army hut, and now we're tackling cancer, decoding the brain, tracking infectious diseases, and rewriting what's possible in medicine. We'll dive into the true stories, funny, messy, inspiring, from the people who made it all happen, and those carrying the torch into the future, because science isn't just labs and data, it's human, and it's happening right here. Professor Grant Ramm is our Deputy Director, Chief Scientist, and heads up the Hepatic Fibrosis Lab. Scientists around the world are watching his developments into liver scarring. He launched the first world global registry for haemochromatosis. Lots of recognition and awards along the way. Thank you so much for helping us celebrate 80 years. You've been here for a substantial chunk of that.
Yes, I have. 35 years now.
You didn't need to put the number on it, but that's good.
That's all right. I'll confess.
You are a real local. You studied at UQ, didn't you?
That's right. I'm originally from the Sunshine Coast and used to travel down by train from Nambour. I stayed on site, but I travelled up and down on the weekends. I undertook my undergraduate science degree in biochemistry and microbiology, followed by honours, and eventually PhD all through UQ.
Who hired you?
Professor June Halliday hired me in 1983. She was working in the University of Queensland Department of Medicine with Professor Laurie Powell, who would go on to become a QIMR director. June was an incredibly strong, determined investigator. She had to be, being a woman working in science in those days. She was very strict, very tough. We used to bash heads quite a bit with different views. She taught me how to be strong, determined, and rigorous in my research. Taught me how to write a scientific paper. My first attempt, she told me, was flowery and was like a novel. It was like reading a novel.
Ouch.
But I accepted that. I thought my work was fantastic. But I did learn that there's a special way to write a scientific paper, and June instilled that in me from an early age.
So 35 years ago, we were in a different building altogether. Can you remember your first day?
My first day at QIMR was when we moved into the Bancroft Centre. It was the first building on the current site. And that was when Laurie Powell, who was one of my PhD supervisors, along with June Halliday, Laurie was the director of QIMR at the time. We moved into a brand new building. It was exciting. Both June and Laurie had design control over the laboratories that we moved into, very spacious, purpose-built, and some fantastic equipment and facilities. The type of equipment we used back then was state-of-the-art, but technology has advanced incredibly over the last 35 years. We have machines that go ping now, technologies that allow you to focus right down inside a cell, whereas back in the day, you're using microscopes that would be considered antiquated now.
And the difference is time, really, and labour, I guess.
Yes, things used to take a lot longer because it was manually operated, all automated now. But it still requires a level of oversight and skill to run these new technologies.
I imagine in that lab with those kind of colleagues, funding wasn't as difficult as it is now.
We thought funding was tough to get in those days, but I think with a success rate 25% compared to what it is these days at about 10%, yeah, it was a lot easier to come by. We were well funded. We didn't realise at the time, but looking back now, incredibly well funded.
The way that you were mentored by June and Laurie, I imagine that impacted the way then you mentored the people to follow you.
Absolutely. June was a harsh taskmaster. Laurie, on the other hand, was a clinician, used to breeze into lab meetings wearing his flying white lab coat, looking stern, but incredibly enthusiastic. He was so excited to hear the results and hear our theories and what we were going to do with them. And that inspired me to have that enthusiasm for science and for research, and to try and impart that upon people that I mentored in the future. There's one particular chap who only recently, well, probably 5 years ago, left the Institute to take up a position in Spain, Manuel Fernandez Rojo. Really serious researcher, very thorough, very good at his work, loved research, and he's now running his own lab in Spain.
And there was only 160 people. Did you socialise as a group? Did you collaborate as a group?
It was a much smaller place. Everyone knew everybody else. The professional services division was on one floor. We knew them very well. They were passionate about being here, about working in a medical research facility because they believed in the work that we were doing. We knew all of the people in professional services. I'd like to think I know them all now, but it's a lot bigger place. We used to do a lot together as an institute. One of the interesting things we used to do at the end of the year, Christmas, we'd walk across the road to a grassed area on a Friday lunchtime before the ICB was built, and we'd have a spit roast, drinks were provided, we'd play games that were a bit odd using scientific equipment such as, shot putting centrifuge rotors. It was a different time, a different attitude, I guess. Not that we're not sociable these days, but we're a lot bigger. It's a little bit harder to do those sort of things now.
It was a big leap for you to go to deputy director. Is that something you were keen to do? And that obviously comes with a lot of challenges.
Yes, it was something I wanted to do for a while. Always looking for a new challenge. Research is very challenging. Gaining research grants, incredibly challenging. But I've been doing it for 30 years, and I thought I'd like to be able to give something back to it, the institute that had given me a home for that period of time, and to try and help others to be successful in winning research grants and pushing back boundaries to make cures for people and make their lives better.
Other scientists say the big leap came with email and the internet. Did that make a big difference for you?
No, I don't think we knew what we were missing out on. Got on a plane, went to a conference, we saw people there, we talked about collaborations, we might call them up afterwards. Once internet and email came on, when it was a revelation, really. We still travel to conferences, but we're able to, within a few hours, if not 24 hours at the most, contact people all around the world and assist with our collaborations or talk about new ventures or putting consortia together to solve some of the toughest challenges in health and medical research.
You pioneered some incredible research. One of the great ones is your haemochromatosis registry.
Yeah, look, standing on the shoulders of people who had come before me, Laurie Powell put that clinical database together over 40 or 50 years. And a lot of us here were the beneficiaries of using that data to produce some amazing publications. Before Laurie passed, we discussed what we could do as a legacy for him and for that database. And we decided we would contact this Haemochromatosis Australia, a patient support group that he had helped set up in the 90s, and offer that database as a seed to grow a national registry for patients with haemochromatosis who could provide their data, have a meeting point to come together to discuss their issues. It's a phenomenal resource and one that I'm very proud that I was able to shepherd through to assist patients, but also as a legacy for Laurie.
Any other research breakthrough that really sticks out to you?
Personally, a collaborative work with Laurie, with Greg Anderson, Deputy Director a few years back, with Nathan Subramaniam, who's now at QUT, together with hepatologist Darryl Crawford from UQ, and identified the reason why patients have haemochromatosis. A few years before that, in 2001, another group identified a hormone peptide called hepcidin that appeared to be involved in iron metabolism. And we showed the mutation in the gene was responsible for regulating levels of that hormone peptide. Prior to that, it was thought the basic defect was in the gut, but our work showed it was in the liver. And that changed the whole paradigm of understanding how haemochromatosis works and potential future treatments. Published in The Lancet in 2003, very proud of that work.
You're doing something very similar in terms of the world standing up and taking notice at the moment with your work in the liver, in fibrosis. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it involves a protein called ferritin. It's an iron-binding protein. It stores iron in the liver. And in haemochromatosis, when patients have too much iron deposited in the liver, that ferritin leaks out or is excreted. out of the liver, and it affects a nearby cell called an hepatic stellate cell, which is a myofibroblast precursor, and that cell is switched on to produce collagen. And excess collagen causes scarring in the liver, fibrosis or cirrhosis, which can lead to liver cancer. And we've identified a mechanism whereby ferritin can induce inflammation, which is the very earliest event in the deposition of scar tissue. And we're now designing drug candidates that can interfere with that pathway and stop inflammation and therefore stop scarring progressing. And it has the potential to impact other liver diseases, not just haemochromatosis, because that protein is present in the liver in all patients and it's elevated in all chronic disease. So it could impact other organ fibrosis as well.
Did you ever suck anything up in a pipette?
I certainly did when I was doing my honours in the Department of Biochemistry at UQ, working with a radioisotope at the time.
Oh.
And it didn't end well. It was a relatively harmless substance, but I was roundly mocked at my residential college for many months afterwards.
And hopefully no long-lasting effects.
Well, you tell me.
Isotopes is another thing that we use less and less of now, thank goodness.
Yes. In our everyday research, we don't use it very often, but obviously it's still used in clinical practice in some areas.
Is there a little-known fact about QIMR Berghofer that people might not know?
Yeah, the one thing that our unit as a whole, we were known as the liver unit in those days, and there were three labs. My lab and Greg Anderson's lab and a lab that Laurie Powell had oversight over. That lab was working very hard to clone the gene for haemochromatosis, and they provided a huge amount of early evidence which guided another group in the US who had about 25 postdocs and huge amounts of funding, and they actually cloned the gene, which was of great disappointment to Laurie and to June Halliday and also the entire group, because they had done all the work, identified the region of the gene, but someone else swooped in and claimed the prize. But Laurie was very magnanimous and congratulated the group, and so close to a major discovery to identify what causes haemochromatosis, it was a bit tough to swallow at the time.
That is sad, but a familiar story.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It was a highly competitive area, people with large pots of money, and of course the US at the time, that's where the money was.
If you figure somebody is just like you 35 years ago, is there a message you could pass on to them?
Yeah, throughout my career, I've always spoken to the next generation coming through who appear to be vacillating about a career in research. And I would say to them, if you really enjoy this, if you're passionate about it, back yourself, because it's tough. It's challenging. There's no question about that. But if you love this area, you'll succeed. So back yourself.
You're part of an extraordinary legacy of QIMR Berghofer, and you've probably got another 35 years ahead of you, but its reputation on the world stage is pretty impressive.
It is impressive. We've had some amazing people come through here. I've only spoken about Laurie and June, but the people who've come through before working on infectious diseases, on cancer, genetics, population health, they're amazing people, and they are the reason why the Institute has the reputation. It's the people who work here, the people in the professional division who support every day those people who are making discoveries. We've come a long way in 35 years. We've got a long way to go ahead. I'm really excited to see how the Institute evolves over the next several years.
Happy anniversary.
To you too.
And you can find out more about Professor Grant Ramm, his team and their work at qimrb.edu.au.